Today we are talking about the Wiim amp. Pro Plus Pro 2.0. I don't know. It's the latest Wiim amp. Here it is right here. And it's on top of the first Wiim amp. Is it better? It's $80 more expensive. Is it worth it? Let's find out today. If you're new and you don't know what Wiim is, Wiim makes amplifiers. Wiim makes streamers. And about 3 or 4 years ago, they released the Wiim Mini, which is an $80 streamer. Then they released the Wiim Pro, which was a $150 streamer. Then they released the Wiim Amp, which is a $300 streaming amplifier. Then they released the Wiim Pro Plus, which is a streamer with a better DAC inside. Then they released the Wiim Ultra, which is a better streamer with the screen and a better DAC inside. Now, the Wiim Amp Pro 2.0 Plus. I don't know what the name is. It'll be linked in the description though, and that will be an affiliate link, which means if you click and you buy, I get a commission. It doesn't cost you anymore, so it's a great way to support the channel. That's a long way to say that Wiim is kind of changing hi-fi, or kind of changed hi-fi. Wiim is the first company that I would consider to be a true market disruptor. Because their products do what other products do at half, a third, a quarter of the price, and are almost universally regarded as being incredible. So what's different? By the way, do you like my shirt? Look at it. World Power Walking, what does it say? World Champion Power Walker, 1978. Huge thank you to today's sponsor, Surfshark. If you're anything like me, you're in coffee shops surfing the internet and you want to make sure you're protected. That's why you need Surfshark to protect you when you are using public Wi-Fi. I'm also a huge college football fan, and I was just in Mexico last week, and guess what I could do? I could watch college football in Mexico because I used Surfshark to use a server in the US when I logged into Hulu. Surfshark also offers 24/7 customer support. You can also get data breach alerts from Surfshark, which means if your email, your credit card, or any other personal data gets leaked, you get informed. You can also search the web privately. No ads, no logs, no trackers. And all this comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So go to surfshark.com/cheap audio and get 4 months for free. Start protecting yourself today. Watch your favorite sports wherever you're at and surf the internet in style with safety. Thank you, Surfshark, for sponsoring today's video.
Back in that bag again. Whoa, whoa, yeah, yeah. Hey, 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 hey. Back in that, yeah. Tell them to watch it. Now I ain't talking my pockets.
One of the things that we need to consider about Wiim or Wiim is that they are traditionally distributed now, which means you can go to Crutchfield, you can go to Audio Advice, and you can buy a Wiim Amp Pro. When Wiim products first came out, you could get them directly from Amazon, or you could get them directly from the Wiim website. Now, you can get them from Crutchfield, from Audio Advice, and that gives a little bit more confidence. As a customer, I would be more willing to buy a product off of Crutchfield than I would to buy a product off of Amazon. One, because you can talk to customer service in the United States. 2, I think you get a 60-day return policy. 3, at Crutchfield, I think you get a price match guarantee. That's a long way to say, and if you watched any of my videos before, you're probably getting sick of hearing me say that Wiim is legit kicking down the doors of some of these established hi-fi brands. Features PFFB, that's post filter feedback technology. It's negative feedback, I think. Anyway, it's new on this amp, and it's not on the first Wiim amp. Does it make a difference? We're gonna get to that here in a second. Here's the deal. Wiim has probably the best app, streaming app that you can use. Regardless of any price. When I put this one in the living room, I had it up and running in less than 5 minutes, including an update. You can also use any of the Wiim products to do multi-room streaming, and that comes in handy when you are comparing the Wiim Amp Pro to the first generation Wiim Amp, because I can play the same thing at the same time, at the same level, and then hook both of them up to a speaker switcher. So I'm listening to the same speaker with the same music, the same source, everything samey-samies, and I can just click back and forth, A, B, A, B. The Wiim Amp Pro has better Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi 6. I don't know what that means. Better Bluetooth, 5.3. I don't know what that means. I don't really use Bluetooth very much. However, the Wiim Amp Pro has a Sabre ESS 9038 Q2M DAC, whereas the first generation has a 9018 K2M. Signal to noise ratio claims to be 120 dB on the Wiim Amp Pro, the new one, versus 98 dB. 120 is greater than 98. Should sound a lot better, right? Maybe. And signal to noise ratio, 105 versus 92. But surprisingly enough, the new Wiim amp does not have AirPlay. It's kind of strange, kind of funny to me. Not that I use it a whole lot. Actually, I don't really love AirPlay because it drops out quite a bit. But it is very interesting that it doesn't have AirPlay. On the back is pretty straightforward and fairly Spartan. On the back you have an HDMI ARC input. That's right above where you plug in the power cable, which is a figure 8 power cable, which means this has an internal power supply. It has a 3255 Texas Instruments amp chip inside, which to me is one of the most lovely, the loveliest Class D amp chip sets that you can get that's affordable. To the right of that, you can hardwire your internet. Underneath there, you can hook up a USB thumb drive. It stores all of your yummy music. Then you have a single analog input. Underneath that, you have a single optical digital input. To the right of that, you have a subwoofer output. And then you have your speaker binding posts, your speaker terminals. Binding posts, I think, are on the speakers. Terminals are on the amp. Anyway, if I'm wrong, put it in the comments. So, the one thing on the back of here that I mentioned would make the Wiim amp perfect, they didn't include, and I was hoping that they would include it on the second generation. And that's a preamp output. Why? Because one could purchase this at $300 or $380, and then if they got a better amplifier, they could use the Wiim Amp Pro as a streamer, as a preamp for bass management. But they didn't put it on there. Why? Why, Wiim? Why? It would make so much sense. You start with the Wiim Amp Pro, just add speakers. You've got an entire system, then just add a better amplifier, and you still be able to use the Wiim Amp Pro as your streamer. Anyway, that's literally the only complaint I have on this. It would be cool if they had a coaxial in. It would be cool if they had a phono stage. I know that the Wiim Ultra has a phono stage on it. Maybe the Wiim Amp Pro Plus Pro 2.0 will have a phono stage on it, and it will have preamp outputs. I don't know. It's cool that it has an internal power supply. However, one of the things about the Texas Instruments 3255 chipset is that it can take up to a 48 volt 10 amp power supply. Obviously, you get what you get on the inside of here, and I totally understand why they're doing that. Let's talk about the speakers I drove with this thing. One of the few criticisms some people had of the Wiim amp was how much power that it can put out. It is claimed to be able to put out 60 watts into 8 ohm loads, 120 watts into 4 ohm loads, which sounds like a lot, and on paper it is a lot. But in the real world, some more power hungry speakers might not get enough go juice from the Wiim amp or the Wiim Amp Pro. I hooked it up to some fairly hard to drive speakers. The Dolly Opticon 6 Mark II are hooked up to it right now. I also hooked up the ELAC Debut 3.0, which are also hard to drive. Both of these speakers also drop some bass bombs, so they need a little bit of juice to get up and go. And in my estimation, most people aren't going to be pushing this amplifier as hard as I've been pushing it today. Most people aren't going to be listening as loud as I was listening today. And most people will probably be running bass management on this, so putting a high-pass filter on the speakers, which takes some of that low frequency responsibility away from the amplifier, which is a good thing. Starting to give up the ghost a little bit right there, especially on those big bass hits. But I mean, we were hitting 84 with some huge speakers. Let's try something else. It's kind of losing it too. So it looks like we're hitting 82, probably 80 dB sustained. Let's just call it 80 dB. The Wiim Amp Pro can comfortably drive the Opticon 6 Mark II to 80 dB. Maybe slightly less if you have a whole bunch of bass going on. Let's give the ELACs a try. Shockingly, the ELACs are playing loud. The most surprising thing is I feel like these are almost putting out more bass than the Dollies are, and it seems like they're keeping it together a little bit more. And this speaker is a lower sensitivity, and it's a bookshelf speaker. The ELAC Debut 3s play louder than the Dolly Opticon 6 Mark II on the Wiim Amp Pro. The takeaway is you're probably not going to get anything going up to 90 dB in a large room when you're about 10 feet away from the speakers. But it's loud enough that my wife would be telling me to turn it down. The big question, how does it sound compared to the first Wiim amp? Is it better? It's marginally better. I wouldn't be able to pick them out in a blind test though. I was using a speaker switcher from Fozzy Audio, and if I'm pressed, I would say that maybe the Wiim Amp Pro has a little bit more clarity throughout the mid-range. I did feel like the Wiim Amp Pro maybe had a little bit more oomph on the bottom, but again, if I had a blindfold on, I don't think I could pick them out. So the question you have to ask yourself, is spending $80 on maybe marginally, incrementally better sound worth it? And you're losing airplay? I don't know. For some people, the Wiim amp is probably the way to go. When I was switching them back and forth on the ELAC Debut 3, it was much harder to tell a difference than when I had the Dolly Opticon 6 Mark II on there, and I think it has to do with the top end. If you have a speaker with a more revealing top end, you're probably going to be able to hear a tiny difference between the Wiim amp and the Wiim Amp Pro. If you don't, if you have a speaker that's a little bit rolled off on top, you're probably not hearing a difference. I think the better pairing was actually the ELAC Debut 3s. It just seemed a little bit more natural. With the Dollies, the Opticons, you have so much clarity on top that I think you can hear the limitations of the amplifier. But with the Debut 3s, a little bit rolled off on top, and it's much more difficult to hear any differences in this amplifier compared to the first generation. And for whatever reason, it just seemed to like the ELACs a little bit better. So for the best pairing, I would look for something maybe with a soft dome tweeter, maybe something with a top end that's a little bit more relaxed. But a pair of the Debut 3s at $450 the Wiim amp or the Wiim amp plus, under $1,000 thereabouts, you're gonna have a killer system. If it was my money, what would I be buying? Probably the Wiim Amp Pro, because it's got a little bit more tech. $80 isn't really kind of a deal breaker for me, and I don't use AirPlay anyway, so I'd probably get the newer one. But I probably wouldn't get either of them because I have so many amps laying around. I'll just get the Wiim Ultra. However, I have no problem recommending either the Wiim Amp or the Wiim Amp Pro. And if you want a minimalist system, if you just want to add speakers and maybe just add speakers and a subwoofer, you're not going to get a better deal out there than you will with the Wiim Amp. Blue Sound also has a streaming amplifier that you can look at too. But if you're on a budget, Wiim Amp's probably the way to go. If you like this video, you should probably check out the video I did on the Wiim Ultra, because you can add a little amplifier that's going to play louder. You can get the Fozzy Audio V3 monos, but you're going to be paying an extra $300. So you're going to come in double the price. You'll be able to get things a little bit louder. I'll link that video here or here. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you'd like to. Thanks for watching.